Hail Mary, full of grace.
Welcome to Early Morning Catechism. We continue our lessons on the Holy Rosary. Today we're going to focus on the joyful mysteries, the mysteries that focus on Mary and her call to be the Mother of God and the birth and childhood of Jesus. Let me just say this to begin with, that when we begin the Rosary, we do have an introductory part. We make the sign of the cross with the crucifix. We hold the crucifix and pray the Apostles' Creed. Then we pray an Our Father and 3 Hail Marys. Often these 3 Hail Marys are prayed for an increase of faith, hope, and charity in the church. Today we're going to consider the joyful mysteries. And so the first mystery, which is this Our Father, and the 10 Hail Marys that are now inside the circle of the Rosary. Let us look at the first mystery, which is the Annunciation. The Annunciation, the angel Gabriel comes to Mary and announces that she is favored and she is called to be the Mother of God, that she will bear a son who will be great and his kingdom will last forever. And of course Mary is confused and asks some questions and then says those beautiful words, "Behold the handmaid of the Lord, be it done unto me according to thy word." I think one of the interesting things to note about this mystery is that if you look at the Old Testament, women speak to God. And at least a couple of times in the Old Testament, women are pleading with God for a child. And their request is answered. But I don't believe there's any place in the Old Testament where a woman is actually in dialogue with God. What you have here in the Annunciation is the angel, the representative of God, carrying on a conversation with Mary, inviting her to respond, entertaining her questions, helping her to calm down in the midst of this big surprise. And the thing we need to also remember is that Mary's whole life was interrupted. And the question for us becomes, will we let God interrupt our lives? The second joyful mystery is the visitation. Mary goes about 100 miles away to the little town of Ein Karen, spelled capital E-I-N, capital K-A-R-E-M. Mary visits Elizabeth. I was told as a child that Elizabeth was going to have a baby. Mary needed to help her out. Well, in terms of the kinds of homes they have, and in terms of the fact that Elizabeth was actually living in a cave, I don't know how much helping out she really needed. I tend to think that Mary needed Elizabeth more than Elizabeth needed Mary. I refer to Elizabeth as Mary's spiritual director. Mary came from Nazareth. Who in Nazareth could really understand what was going on in Mary's life? But Elizabeth knew, because Elizabeth had experienced God's working in her own life. And so she says to Mary, "Blessed are you who believed that the promise made by God will be fulfilled." And so it is a time of great rejoicing. And you will notice again, there's no man in the picture. These two women are able to understand how God is working in their lives and to rejoice with each other in the wonderful things that God has done. The third joyful mystery, of course, is the one we are so familiar with, the birth of the Christ child. The sentence that always stands out for me in the gospel after the shepherds have come to visit Bethlehem is that sentence that says, Mary pondered these things. She treasured them in her heart. I can't help but think that she looked back over the last 9 months, that she reviewed over and over the story of how the angel Gabriel had spoken to her, how she reviewed her conversation with Elizabeth as she saw this promise of God unfold before her. The fourth joyful mystery is the presentation of the Christ child in the temple. Jesus is 40 days old. He is brought to the temple for the ritual presentation and the purification of Mary. And this old man, Simeon, takes him in his arms. Simeon had asked that God not take him from his life until he had seen the Messiah. And he blesses God, saying, Now, Lord, you can dismiss your servant in peace. My eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared in the sight of all the nations. But he also tells Mary that a sword will pierce her heart. And he prepares her for the sorrow that she will go through, not only at the crucifixion, but really off and on throughout the life of Jesus. And the last mystery is that of the finding of Jesus in the temple. Mary and Joseph looked for him for 3 days, thinking he was somewhere in their caravan. They had to return to the temple where they found him teaching the teachers. Then Jesus goes home with them, and again we hear the sentence that Mary pondered these things. And so these are beautiful mysteries for us to ponder as we pray the rosary.